Welcome to Cannon Caulkers Talk. This is Mike Marletto back with you. Back with us today are Mark Fackler and Casey Harsh. And then we've got two additional folks joining us today. Josh is joining us from Missouri and Erika from beautiful Southern California. I talked about myself a little bit last time, and Mark and Casey introduced themselves, but I'd like to give Josh and Erika a chance to tell us a little bit about themselves. And so, Josh, why don't you go ahead and tell us about yourself? Where'd you grow up? When did you come in the Marine Corps? And when did you join the 11th Marines?
I'm Joshua Brack. I from Branson, Missouri is where I finished high school at. Joined the Marine Corps in 2000, went to boot camp at MCRD San Diego. Went through comm school at 29 Palms and then joined 11th Marines in the summer of '01.
Erika?
Yes, hi, I'm Erika Sims, and I grew up in Bakersfield, California, and I actually joined the Marine Corps for the first time. I have a unique story. The first time in '99 when I graduated, and I made it through the first day of the Crucible, and I broke my ankle, and I got sent to medical rehab platoon, and I ended up staying there for about 3 months, and then they kicked me off the island. And once I was able to re-enlist, I went ahead and did that, and I came back into the Marine Corps in 2001, went through boot camp, made it clean through this time, and then I joined 11th Marines in January of 2002, I believe. Yeah.
So Erika, I think you're a little unique. We talked last time about where we were during 9/11. I think you, if I'm not correct, you were in boot camp at the time. Can you tell us
Yes.
what it was like to be at Parris Island and find out America was under attack?
Yes. So when we found out, we were on A line, so it was close to the end of boot camp, and I thought it was part of the training, the way that the drill instructors approached it. They kind of got us into a school circle and made us sit down, and they explained to us what happened. And honestly, I thought it was part of the training. I didn't realize that it was serious, and none of us did. Those of us that were on the training, we just thought we were just rolling with it, and then we saw some of the girls get pulled aside, and they were told that like they lost some parents in the Twin Towers, and then that's when it was real. It's kind of a shock, and the rest of training was halted for the day, and that's pretty much it. We were just sequestered, like sent back to the squad base, and that was it. Really, that was it. But yeah, it was kind of a shock.
I was going to say, I guess that says something about the Marine Corps basic training when you think that something like that is a mind game that your drill instructors are playing on you.
Right. And that's what we thought. We thought it was, and I hate saying it this way, we thought it was, I don't want to say it's a joke, but we didn't think it was serious at all. It was just written into the training, and that was that.
And when you joined the 11th Marines, what was your job?
My job was an administrator. So at 0121, I worked in RPAC, and that's where I was for the full 4 years.
Okay. But I think you also had some additional duties. You became an incidental driver, I believe.
Yes. I was sent to learn how to drive the Humvee, and then once that was done, I was pulled to drive the 7-ton when we got to Matilda. So that was interesting. Definitely did not expect that, but it was a lot of fun.
Right. So just for our viewers out there that may not be aware of it, 11th Marines was unique in that we were the only regiment in the 1st Marine Division that had women assigned to the regiment. So Erika provides a unique perspective when we're talking about OIF. So last time we talked about, what happened between 9/11 and the end of December of 2002, as the regiment, really prepared and leaned forward for a potential deployment. today we're going to talk about the regiment deploying and basically assembling in Kuwait and some of the things, life in Kuwait prior to us crossing the line of the departure on the 20th of January, 20th of March in 2003. So on the 31st of December 2002, we got the warning order that we were going to be prepared to deploy to Iraq. And ultimately, the deployment order came in mid-January. So, Mark, where were you and how'd you hear about the fact that, we've been doing all this training, but now we're going to deploy? How'd you hear about that?
So we were at the shop. The CM shop is right there. As you come into Pulgus, you pass the sort of the motor T mound. It's the first right, and it's right on the corner there across from Weather. They told us all that this, we had been anticipating it, and now we were going to. You're gonna have to help me out, sir. I can't remember when we loaded the black bottoms, if it was before the December announcement or if it was after. But I remember us being tasked to just start driving everything down there. Not only did we have to get the new, because we had been issued some new zipper equipment, new just new everything. New Dells were issued, which was a big deal because that was a step up from we only had towers at the time. The regiment there in the Pulgus Valley, so we would run around and fix these towers, and now all of a sudden we have brand new computers, we have brand new zippers that we had barely tested on the on that CAX previous, and then now we're going to pack them up and start just massive road march down to put everything on the boats. So everything was packed up, and made sure that the newest and the best was available for us to pack up, and then we just started. Every day was a road trip, so we doubled up on just all the Humvees in the lot, all the 7 tons, everything, and we got an A driver and a basically a lance and a corporal, and we just went down to the San Diego, loaded up the boats, and that's what I remember from that time. That and what militarily anyway. Personally, as I spoke about on the first episode, I became engaged at that time. And a lot of us, a lot of Marines who were, junior, got married. I didn't feel like that was the right choice for me, but I did get engaged at that time, and that was one of the things that helped me get through the operation as a whole. Was I wanted to get back and get married, which I guess we'll talk about later on in the episodes. But I became engaged. I put everything on the black bottoms, and as we talked about earlier, we had a warrant officer, Houndshell, who was given the commo, said, I want you to go around to these Marines and make sure that all the Marines in the barracks, which I still had a barracks room at that time, have all their equipment. And as I told you before, we it wasn't just we might go, it was, we're going, where's your stuff? If you don't have it, you're wrong. And you have 30 seconds to find it and get it so you can pack it in the sea bags. And then we were given a time and a place for where the sea bags had to be, and a departure time, which eventually would come sometime in January, we're told, that this is our departure date. We're going to be going. My group, which was different from everyone else's, I've been told, would leave from March Air Force Base, which was a road march or a drive on the residual or the hangback Humvees that were staying. We would take them up there and then leave them staged, and then groups would come up and drive them back to the base. So to Pendleton. So we drove up to, eventually after we had our stuff staged it was, I want to say at the time it was there was a parking lot to the north of the barracks, where some of the headquarters offices of the different units were, 211, the different headquarters of the battalions. There's a grinder. I believe there was an old chow hall there. That was the area that we would stage. So in a nutshell, we drove down and put everything on the black bottoms. We finalized our personal effects, put them in sea bags, and staged them for our departure, which was the 21st of February from March Air Force Base. And it was a lot. It was a lot at once. I don't want to say that there was excitement, because that's probably the wrong word, but we'd never experienced this as far as in any of the training, to have a actual order that says, you will deploy. That was something new. And a lot happened at once because of that order that came down. So that about covers it from what
Okay.
I remember.
Well, as Mark mentioned, and I should point out, the 11th Marines, we deployed by just about every mode possible. We had all our firing batteries, at least the ones that we were augmented later with 2 batteries from 10th Marines. But we had 10 of our firing batteries that deployed with the 211 and 311 headquarters and fell in on MPF, Maritime Prepositioned Shipping Equipment in Kuwait. We had, as Mark said, we had a host of equipment from our regimental headquarters, from 5th Battalion, 11th Marines headquarters, that went over on what we call black bottom shipping. We had the 111 headquarters deploy on amphibious shipping with Amphibious Task Force West, which departed in mid-January from San Diego, California. But then the majority of our folks would ultimately fly over and marry up with gear that had either come over on ships or from the maritime prepositioned equipment. And then we had some specialized gear that got flown over on military and civilian chartered aircraft, like a lot of our equipment from our regimental headquarters command posts that got flown over on that type of stuff. So Casey, we talked about the fact that you had been with the regiment a long time. You'd gone through a lot of pre-deployment training. So when it finally hit that, hey, we're getting ready, we're going, was it anticlimactic, or what was your reaction?
It was kind of, I couldn't believe it. Like I was watching it happen like in real time, an entire division picking up and deploying. I've never seen anything like it. It's like the mother of all deployments, right? It was pretty exciting. I was pretty nervous. I think I said, before we had our discussion, you're like, no, we're going to beat them like they owe me money. So, I was pretty confident it was on that time as much so, but it's kind of exciting to see the whole thing. Just to take in, just the sheer scale and the size and the volume of moving that many men, an entire MEF reinforced, and then sustain it. Like no other, I think we're seeing right now in real time, but that's a unique capability that the U.S. can do to pick up an entire army and sustain it without host nation support. Yeah, it was something. But just like digging the tackle level and packing up 7 cubes, we're like, my God. But it was kind of wondering, like, well, how long is this going to take? You know, how long is it's going to be open-ended? But it sure was a hell of a. It was sure as a hell. It's a pretty good deployment, good ride up.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to see as everybody's starting to phase out and get over. And yeah, it was something. That was a hell of an accomplishment. A whole lot of work trying to plan that and move it out and move the entire regiment out along with the division and everything else.
How about you, Josh? What was the feeling among yourself and the other communicators?
A lot of us weren't sure what to think, especially going over. The uniqueness about our gear is, you know, we had so many problems just trying to communicate in 29 Palms. A lot of times headquarters would have our comm up, but then, you know, like the LOC or trying to use HF and talk to the forward or 111, 311, the firing batteries. A lot of times it seemed like it took forever to get comm up between us, you know, so we could do our fire mission. That was a lot of our concern. And then as far as the crypto, getting everybody on the same crypto, and then how we were going to relay crypto changes to each other while in, you know, Iraq. So that was a lot of the talk amongst us, is how are we going to do this right and be able to talk to each other.
Okay. And I recall, you know, when we got over to Kuwait and started doing some training, I don't know what it was about the area where we were in Kuwait, but for whatever reason, the FM communications was horrible. And, you know, radios where normally we could talk 15 to 20 kilometers, we were struggling to talk, you know, 7 kilometers. And so I was like, wow, I don't know what it is about this place. I hope that, you know, this isn't going to be what we're facing as we go forward, because we need to be able to talk at a lot greater distances than we're facing some challenges. And fortunately enough, it did clear up. So again, I don't know if there's some kind of something in the ground there, magnetic interference. I don't know what the answer is, but I know once we actually got rolling, the comms seemed to, you know, really clear up, and didn't, you know, while we had challenges, certainly wasn't a showstopper. So Erika, you know, you'd been in the regiment now about a year. So when the word came down, probably this time you figured out it wasn't a mind game. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, so it was pretty hush hush. I didn't hear much of anything until right before everything was going down. So basically, I believe the reason why I was tagged was because I was one of the only people in all of our pack that, actually, I think I was the only person in our pack, the only Marine that had a Humvee license. So they pulled me, and yeah, like I said, I wasn't made aware of anything until last minute, and it was pretty interesting. Everything went really quick from there.
Now let's while, you know, we got the deployment order, we're getting all our gear ready to go. There were lots of things going on. We had our desert camis issued, you know, laid them out, got them sprayed with permethicone. We had a whole series, you know, it's kind of funny. Mark and Casey and I were kind of laughed a little after the last show, talking about the fact that, you know, we had a series of anthrax vaccinations that we had to go through. We had the infamous smallpox, which, you know, I was kind of scratching my head saying, I got one of those when I was a kid. You know, I thought it was good for, you were good for life. But, you know, in the true military manner, if it's not in your shot record, it doesn't count. So, and everyone got them, whether they had one before or not. But so we had all those types of things going on. I mean, I think personal preparations, you had people putting together wills, powers of attorneys. So anything about all that kind of sticks out in your mind, Mark?
Yeah, so that was part of our list that the warrant officer came around at the commo, told us, you know, you had to have these things, you had to have two, or Zach can, or excuse me, Josh can help me remember, like it's 2 or 3 desert sets, and then we had to have 2 or 3 desert digitals. Then we had, I'm not sure if we had to have the tricolor digitals. It was a lot of stuff to go in that sea bag, but that along with the shot was the Anthrax series of shots was just mind blowing. I'd never experienced something that went in and hurt like that. I think we talked about this the last episode, but yeah, so the shots, the digis, then we got I'm not sure if it was the run up, the initial issue for the deployment. We got boots reissued. So if we had leather boots before, now we have this another set, and you know, it had to be good, you know, in case we were there for, you know, over a year or longer. We had to have all of these things. And for me, it was could I fit it all in my sea bag? I had a lot of stuff that I, you know, brought over, you know, personal items like, you know, a small Bible and a clipboard that I thought I would need, one of those metal ones that you fold up. I ended up using that quite a bit. But, you know, so you take a certain amount of personal items, and if you can't fit all of the issue gear that you have to have in, then that's it. You sacrifice your personal items, and that's it was just all about that for a while. You know, letter writing gear. You know, how am I gonna communicate? You know, give me some stamps. You know, last minute things. People going out in the middle of the night out of the barracks to buy stamps or get, you know, earplugs or shaving gear or wet wipes or whatever, or I should say shower items, because that's what we use for showers. As we all know, sometimes we're packs of wet wipes. So it was just, it was like cleaning the house before guests come over. It was that whirlwind that you do that's pretty stressful, but you know that there's, you know, it's for a good reason. So it was, as Casey, I'll echo what Casey said. It was exciting, at least for me in my late 20s. And I'm about 10 years older than the folks sometimes that I went over with, but for at least on the junior enlisted side. So for someone who's 18, 19 to be taking this trip right out of the jump, it was pretty profound for all of them, and it was even profound for me in my late 20s. So it was really something, sir.
How about you, Casey? Anything stick out in your mind about all those pre-deployment preps? Or
Yeah, I remember those. I remember actually when you get the call, because when your stick goes out, or forget what your, you know, when you're a group and you got your launch date. But remember how we'd locked down I think 12 hours before, or
yeah, it was basically,
I think it was like 12 hours.
Yeah, basically, well, and I think it was a division policy that you know, you would get the word that I mean, as they were figuring out how to move tens of thousands of people, you know, you would get the word that you were going to depart the following, or, you know, in 2 days or whenever. And then the night before,
it was Kyle Gentry that was given the you get the phone call at 2 a.m, like, hey man, can you go? I'm like, yes.
Yeah, but the point that you're getting at is everyone would come in, they would say their goodbyes, and, you know, they would, you know, kiss their wives and girlfriends, and then, you know, basically they would spend the night at Las Pulgas, it didn't matter if you were single or married, and then get on the buses and head to March Air Force Base. We did have some folks fly out. I believe we had some fly out of Miramar, but I think the very large majority of folks flew out of March. But so yeah, you're right. Everyone was locked down for that final night prior to departing.
Yeah, roll out. But it seemed pretty fluid, and I mean, maybe the first couple, but I went out kind of in the February time frame, so I was watching everybody get kind of called ahead, so I was ready to. I mean, we saw what everybody else was doing, and it was, we worked out some of the kinks by the time we went there. It was pretty smooth. Got my smallpox shot and boarded the United 747 over at Mars Air Force Base in the wee hours of the morning.
And Josh, how about yourself? Anything that sticks in your mind about all that preparation time?
Yeah, I was freshly married, and we had just gotten out of being roommates with another married couple and got our own place. And so my entire concentration up to the point of getting on the bus and leaving was power of attorney, apartment, furniture, car, making sure everything was set in place so that she was comfortable while I was gone. And then I ended up being the guy that come back from the Dear John letter and nothing when I came home. So it was kind of a wasteful thing when you look back on it. Like, man, I did all that work, and I could have been doing other things. But here we are. So.
Well, I didn't know that part of your story, but that's interesting. I'm sure there were some other Marines who had to deal with the same thing when they got back.
Yep.
Erika?
Yeah, so I was single and living in the barracks at the time, so it was a lot of fun leading up until the lockdown. And then what I do remember, what stands out the most, is that since I've lived in the barracks, I obviously had to store my car somewhere because they didn't want us to just leave them out there in the barracks. So there was a lot that was over by the CBR unit. And I just remember having to go through all this trouble to get my car stored, and I was just sitting there in a lot the whole time. But I remember that, and the anthrax shots. Those were not fun. I don't know how they did it, but BAS managed to lose my medical record, and I ended up getting. I can't remember how many shots I got before, but I had to go through and get them over again. So it was fun times.
So you were probably protected from anthrax for life, since
yeah. any other issue out there, or disease or whatever, that too. I'm sure, absolutely sure.
Okay, so then, as we talked about, we're getting ready to go. We talked a little bit about the fact that you would get the call and be told you were going to depart on a certain date. Let's talk a little bit about what your experience was, not only flying over, but your initial impressions when you hit the ground in Kuwait. Mark, why don't you tell us a little bit about your deployment and arrival experience?
So the aircraft refueled in Germany, where we stayed over while it was refueled, and fresh pilots boarded the aircraft. We went from there down into Kuwait, and I remember the arrival, the flight as well, but it was a little bumpy over Egypt. I think that we flew over some either a dust storm, which we all know what comes in later, but like a lot of turbulence over the sand, and then the approach, because of airspace and different tactical reasoning, we had to fly in a way that was a very long and drawn out approach from, I believe it was the south the airfield. It wasn't basically a fly in a drop like some different theaters have. It was just a long drawn out flyover of a lot of desert terrain, and we saw on that approach a lot of the tanks and things that were destroyed in the Desert Storm. We're still there. The hulks of the destroyed armaments, I would imagine Iraqi armaments that pushed into Kuwait, were still around, and you could see them in the desert there, just there, kind of rotting away. So that was profound to a fellow like me that follows history or tried to not be the smartest Marine, but kind of know what's going on around me and what things are from, and why we're doing them, because it helped me explain to those enlisted Marines that were younger than me, so that they understood if they didn't understand. And I didn't know everything either, and but those things that I did know, we came in and we got on a bus. After the plane landed, everyone got off. Our gear was loaded onto what looked like some either civilian transports or some, I had to load the bags. The reason that this isn't a point for me is at March, I had to throw bags. I became an impromptu baggage handler. So I was interested in what they were doing to the sea bags. So they got taken off, and then we were sort of let off down the stairs. But before we went, the stewardess, and I've mentioned this to you, sirs, these were volunteers. The pilots were volunteers. They volunteered their time. I'm not sure if the United States or perhaps United donated the fuel. That's above my pay grade. I don't know if they did or not, but I know that the pilots were volunteers, and so were the staff, the flight attendants. So when we pulled into the to I guess the staging area there, or gate, if you will, one of the attendants said, it's been our pleasure to bring you here. And she said, in so many words, she said, if you see the old man out there, give him the business for us. And so that was, folks laughed about that. So we got off, we're at the staging area, and we were there for a while, and sort of with the big floodlights all around us, kind of in the dark there, just standing there. And then eventually we got on buses and we rolled out to what I believe was Matilda, to our homes for the remainder of February and a lot of March. And I remember getting to my little place there in the hooches, which were fabulous. Apparently they got knocked down eventually in a dust storm, but they were great. It was a hard floor to sleep on, but I wasn't expecting the Hilton. Threw my sea bags and my ISO mat down there, and I was just tired from being on a plane for 18 hours. So we got some initial sleep, and then CEM started to set up our stuff just like everyone else did. That's what I remember of getting there, sir.
Casey, tell me about your arrival in Kuwait and your first impressions of LSA Matilda.
Yeah, so I had to have been on the same flight as Mark. We were probably on that same detachment that went out. So similar, yeah, we landed at Kuwait. That's pretty foreign. Everybody had to use the bathroom, and the bathrooms look a little bit different. The Asian hole in the ground. But I kind of remember that, and then getting in the bongo buses. I mean, these Arab like bongo buses heading up to, and I think they're armed. I think we had escort. So nobody has, as we're closing the force and everybody's flowing through. But yeah, hitting Matilda. I was struck by just like how large the camp was, and it was just a tent city with that center that was cleared. But like Mark said, I thought the tents were super bitchin'. They looked, it was like that canvas or cotton or something, but it looked so foreign. It looked so like Lawrence of Arabia type. but externally the row of tents were all covered in a line neatly. But yeah, there was some firm flooring for sure.
And I believe they
and
had power.
it was so bright. I couldn't remember the brilliance of the sun on that pale sand. Oh, and I don't remember what it was, but I remember seeing a lizard. It had to have been the size of like a small Labrador. It was huge. Anyway, I didn't. You're about ready to say something.
No, I was going to say, those tents, they had power run into them. They had,
yeah, they were good.
They weren't, furnished. They still had power. And also, I was reminded by a picture I just saw posted on our Facebook site that they also had reverse cycle air conditioning run into at least some of those tents.
Oh, okay.
I didn't recall that. And I think at that time of the year, I'm not sure we needed AC. But,
no, it was pretty comfortable. It was pretty temperate.
Like it was there, and yeah, it was fairly comfortable. Yeah. Josh, what were your initial thoughts? Hitting the ground there in Kuwait and arriving at lovely LSA Matilda.
I was the same way. I was thrown back by how big the tent city was and how it was already set up, ready for us to get there. I didn't expect that at all. Chow in the morning, it was different. They had the goat milk, which I wasn't expecting, and it was funny because you could always tell who had cereal in the morning, because after you had breakfast, everyone's cheeks were a little puffier because of how thick that goat milk was. It'd give you those chipmunk cheeks until about noon, until you go to eat again. But we had the nice running trailer bathrooms there already set up for us. Some of the porta johns too, but the camp itself was nice. I mean, it was there for us. I had no complaints as far as being there. It was what we were looking forward to, and digging our graves every night to sleep in is what. Then you take the things like Matilda for granted. So
yeah, I think even later, to be just about the time we were getting ready to depart, I think they were even some enterprising guy from Kuwait City was sending a bunch of Pizza Hut pizzas out there and selling them, as I recall. But Erika, how about yourself? And you have to remind us, we're all the. I'm assuming that all the females had your own, areas that set aside.
Yes, we did. We had our own tent, and we also had our own bathroom areas. So yeah, that was interesting. I feel the same way as everybody did when we first got there. I think the one thing that stood out to me the most too was the bus ride over. If I'm remembering correctly, there were curtains on the bus and we couldn't look out of them. And it was just like, everybody's like, don't look out the window. And it's like, of course, you want to check out where we're going. And, that stood out. And once we got there, it was amazing. Like, I didn't expect it to be set up. I was expecting more 29 Palms ish, we were going to be roughing it, but, no, it was set up, and I remember chow too. And it was a lot better than what I ever imagined. So.
Well, just to give you a little background, I had flown over on one of the initial flights in late January with 311, myself and Captain Will Hubbard, our S2. Had gone over because we wanted to get over there early and get tied into the planning cell that the division was running at Camp Commando, which was where the MEF headquarters was. And so the first night I spent there, because I was with 311, we spent it at LSA Ripper, which was for the 7th Marines. So they had some tents set up. But the next morning, I was going to go down to Camp Commando. And so they got in the vehicle. They said, hey, we'll drive you through LSA Matilda. That's where the 11th Marines Division is going to be, headquarters battalion and recon. And so they drove us over to LSA Matilda. So when I got there, the day I arrived, and there may have been 1 or 2 tents set up, but it was mostly just an empty area with a bunch of stuff laying on the ground, getting ready to go up. So it is amazing how quickly they built that infrastructure up and allowed for us to take advantage of that during our time in Kuwait. So we got to Kuwait. We're in LSA Matilda. We did a whole series of training evolutions while we were there, still not knowing if we were actually going to fight, because there were still political efforts going on. So, but we were, of course, taking advantage of that time to, be ready to execute any orders that we may have received. So, Casey, anything that stuck out in your mind about the training that we were doing and that we did prior to rolling out?
Well, you guys had registered the weapons, I think, before in July. I thought that was really kind of unique. That had happened before we had landed, but you guys had all registered, and I thought that was, you see, a regimental commander had a Fort Sill background in Gunnery, so registering the guns and bringing them out and seeing how they were going to perform and solve for pause or doing that. I think that was great. We were, because as they're during the berm busting, I would go out pretty much forward, because when the berm busting operations were going, I was largely out forward, because we had, I think there was 2 battalions out in the field at each time. And, we'd always have whenever 2 battalions, you set that policy of, hey, we're going to have a regimental capability out there to command and control those. So we were out there quite a bit until we LD'd. So it felt like it was pretty much a sure thing. I don't think we're going to pack up and go back.
Josh, were you with were you providing comm support to the LOC, or were you with the forward or the main CP?
So during the training, I was with the forward around Kuwait, and then there at Matilda we had a COC set up and was doing comm watch there as well on the radios and talking to the battalions and stuff that were out forward when we were back at Matilda. And I was actually in the COC. I remember we had talked, and the rumor was talking about when the frag order was going to come in, 2 days after the sandbox brief. So there was going to be the sandbox brief. 2 days later, Bush was supposed to give the order, frag out, let's go. And I remember everyone is in the COC that night doing the sandbox brief, and next thing I know, this frag order's coming across the desk, and I can't remember which one of you in the COC it was, but I was just a peon lance corporal at the time, and said, Brock, put that radio down and go wake everyone up and tell them to let's go. And I remember running into our tent that I shared with Mark Fackler, and was banging everything and trying to wake everyone up, because I think it was probably like 1:30 or 2 in the morning, and it was super late, and everything coming out of Mark's mouth and his buddy boss is like, you're full of shit, we're going back to sleep, Brack. And nobody wanted to believe me, and next thing you know, everyone's getting up and they're following through, and we're pushing forward. And that morning we're driving through the berms that have been busted down going into Iraq.
So were you involved? I know that the Master Guns Williams had just about every night, I believe, was rolling out the jump COC and conducting training and practicing passing command and control back and forth. Were you involved? Obviously, I think you must have been involved with all of those efforts.
I was involved with that as far as we were training, but going once we had that opening gambit, I was with the LOC. I mean, we were side by side with the COC most of the time, but I was there with Harsh, Master Guns, Williams, the other Williams, or no, was it Thomas? I'm trying to remember the tall one.
No, it's Paula Wet was the I think wasn't Paula Wet with the log chief?
He was, but
and
I'm not
Kyle
Yeah.
Gentry.
right.
Yeah, Gentry and Holloway, because he always had the bomb salsa, and he had the hot sauce.
He always had the best, the gourmet like fire breathing out of your ass type
Yeah. And he'd be like,
salsa
how
that
many-
would like our hot sauce that was just like ridiculous, like ghost
Yeah,
peppers.
how many-
Like
Yeah,
I
the
forgot
challenge,
about that.
How many
Paula
drops
Wet.
of the bomb? How many drops of the bomb are you going to put on your MRE tonight? Let's have.
That's right. Remember, it was that little green and yellow atomic hazardous waste hot sauce. I forgot about that.
Erika, what anything stick out in the training, and tell us about your thoughts when everyone's getting woken up and said, "Hey, we're going."
So the training that I did, primarily having to do with the vehicle, the PMCS of the vehicle. I didn't really do much other training, but yeah, it was PMCS like every day, sometimes multiple times a day, but that was the training I did. What else? And funny story about when we got word to go, I was actually deathly sick. I remember having a fever of like 102 or something like that. They had an IV in me, medical did, they had IV in me, and I was strung up. And I remember we were told that we were going to get ready to go. And I was like, what am I supposed to do? I'm like dying over here. But I remember I was able to get it together, and we pushed back to where my tent was and staged from there. And then that's what I remember. I just remember being very, very sick, and I had an IV in me, and it was crazy.
Hey, Mark, or Josh brought up MREs. Let's do a quick go around. Mark, what was your go-to MRE?
Mexican enchilada, hands down.
Casey?
Well, back in the day, I would go with the I guess all-time favorite, the escalloped potatoes with ham, because nobody really liked it, and I thought it was all right. Plus, you always got a fudge brownie in that bad boy. It was dynamite. Oh, it's good. It was good. Or the all-time favorite has got to be chicken and rice. That's a pretty valuable trade.
Yeah.
You have the yellow pound cake in that one or something. It was dynamite.
So Josh, were you a peanut butter or are you a cheese guy?
I was the jalapeno cheese guy. I like the chili mac with the cheese. Yeah, I stayed away from the Four Fingers of Death. I would never eat the charms. And what's funny is I was a little chunky when I went to Iraq and deployed. So I actually devoured myself to not eat a single pound cake the entire time I was over there out of any of the MREs or the Skittles. So anytime I had those, I handed them off, and I was actually pretty skinny getting on that boat. So.
How about you, Erika? What was your go-to?
I like the cheese tortellini or the chili mac, whichever one I could get.
I was, of course, I had my own vehicle with Sergeant Major Bell and Corporal Barton, our driver. So we, had a case or two of MREs in our vehicle, but we had the, basically the throwaway box where, we would toss the stuff we didn't want. So quite often, if I open an MRE, just dip into the, throwaway box and, grab something. So I actually was probably one of the few who liked the captain and crew chicken. So But with enough Tabasco on that stuff, and it all worked. So can't complain. Anyone have anything else they want to talk about as far as, all our time prior to, as far as the deployment and time in Kuwait, anything else?
I'd say, when we came down, we got the deployment order because we got the Frago that we were going in there. We came down briefly to get our final preparations. But I thought the one thing that I thought was kind of interesting was I'd never seen DPICM before. So when you're actually seeing those DPICM rounds with those the yellow diamonds, and when you're actually sitting next to like I mean that's just death from above. It was seeing stuff I'd read about it, tested on it, never got to see it, touch it, shoot it. It was kind of like seeing a celebrity.
Yeah, I think it was pretty sobering to all of us to see those stacks of ammo that were being loaded up. Certainly we shot quite a few rounds in training, but nothing on the magnitude. And as you say, those types of specialized munitions, ICM, you might shoot once a year at 29 Palms, RAP rounds, rocket assisted projectiles. You would, fire, a handful per year, but we had never fired in training base burn DPICM that we were going to be shooting. We had never fired scatterable minefields that we had the capability. We didn't end up shooting any of those, but that was another round that, you didn't see in training, but now we were loading those things up for the real thing. So yeah, that was quite eye-opening to see, trucks and LVSs with just full of ammunition and powder. Josh, Erika, anything else you want to add?
No.
Good. All right. Well, hey, I appreciate everyone giving us your time, talking about your unique experiences. As I talked about last week, I think it's the key thing is we want to talk about what was happening down at the tip of the spear. Lots of stuff out there that talks about what happened at the 10,000 foot level, the big broad blue arrows, but I think it's important that we capture what the individual Marines were going through and what they were experiencing and feeling and what they remember about that unique time in our lives. So thanks again for sharing it with us, and I look forward to talking on future evolutions. Thanks a lot, everyone.